Last weekend, the Latin American International Championships took place, which there are only 3 of these a year, so these are very, very important tournaments, lots of points, lots of prizing, lots of pride on the line here, so a lot of players do tend to fly out for these and try to perform their best, and I think it's a great time to look at meta development and try to see what teams are important going forward. Now, I wanted to talk about the teams that place first and second, obviously the 2 best teams in the tournament, but also I think they're some of the more interesting ones. I think that these are 2 teams that obviously were on people's radars, but not necessarily ones that you would have expected to win the entire event, unless, of course, you're predicting Marco to win. But yeah, I wanted to take a look at them and just talk about them and how they were built and what they mean going forward into the meta. Alright, let's talk about the second place team first. So this was a team that was actually built by a Japanese player. It did extremely, extremely well. It was made by Elizabeth Poke. I will link you to all their stuff down below. Torviv obviously picked this team and piloted it to perfection, but it was built by a Japanese player. It did extremely well on the ladder. It was able to place first in one of the seasons, so it obviously has a ton of credentials. It's a very good team, but obviously that was in best of 1. And a lot of people aren't necessarily like hardcore considering teams that do well on the ladder always, just because it's like, who cares? It's best of 1. It doesn't mean that they're going to shine in best of 3. There's obviously a lot of best of 1 tricks here. We get the Scarf Golden Go, Terra fighting Archaludon, and of course this Tailwind Ursaluna combo, which I don't think is like super obscure that you wouldn't see it coming on ladder anymore. But again, it is also just very, very good just because it does allow Ursaluna to become this Tailwind sweeper with the speed investment it does have. But other than that, it's a pretty standardish sets all around. I think the Protect on Golden Go is really cool. But yeah, it's a team that I would expect to do well on ladder, but not a team I would necessarily expect to place second at an internet. I think a lot of people going into this tournament did have their eyes on it, at least discussed it, thought about it, maybe considered it. But after Torviv's performance, I think this is definitely a team you need to pay attention to and like have game plans for going forward, because I think it performed extremely well. I think it has just a lot of solid modes. I think a lot of the success comes from not being able to deal with everything at once. It's obviously got a Trick Room mode with Sinestro, but it also has this really strong offensive Tailwind mode, either with Pelipper or Dragonite. And then Archaludon is obviously a Pokemon you always have to respect. It can just go nuts, whether just with Electroshot spamming or even with the side scale shot action that you can pull off, where you just scale shot your arch and then it just goes crazy with this terrifying body press. I think Scarf Golden Go is also just a mon that puts on immense pressure, whether your support mon's getting tricked or you're just getting blasted by a Make It Rain or Shadow Ball from a Scarf mon. It's just a lot to deal with. I do also think it has a lot of good matchups into the common teams. Obviously Dozo's handled with Haze. It's got rain, so it's got a weather control. I think it matches up particularly well into the Sneasler Indeedee stuff with this Dragonite and the Snarl Archaludon. I just think it's got a lot of good options. And I think playing this team is somewhat easy. I think it's just mostly about getting control of, whether with speed control or with just pressure of just setting up your Ursaluna early, so you're able to just do insane damage with Ursaluna, set up the Tailwind. And again, most stuff isn't going to even outspeed you, because Tailwind right now is not super duper popular. There is some Talonflame, Ursaluna Blood Moon stuff that is good, but I do think having Tailwind is really good. And then obviously you have Trick Room as well. So you just have like all these different options, and I think it just lets a good player be a good player. And I think that's why this team is so good. Moving forward, I think this team does need to be answered. Obviously in finals, we saw it struggle a bit versus Sun, but even then, I think there's some techs or changes you could make to help with that. Obviously something like Power Gem Golden Go could be really good, or just like just sitting down and figuring out the matchup. I do think that some of the Terra types could change as well. I think Archaludon is one. I think Pelipper could definitely be changed as well. You could run the Sash set. The original team did have safety goggles. I believe Torviv ran Sash. So this is based more on the, this is the ripped directly from the post that the Japanese player made. Obviously I'll link all that down below. But yeah, this is the original version. I think the Sash Pelipper is really good. Over the goggles, but still goggles is neat for best of 1. But I think this team is really good. I think it's just a lot to deal with, like I mentioned earlier, and that's what sets it apart from a lot of the other teams. But it was a team that I wasn't necessarily expecting to do as well as it did. Ursaluna is just a really strong Pokemon, and it was just piloted fantastically. I think Torviv is one of the best players in the world, obviously, right now. But I think this was just a really strong choice from him as a player, and it paid off for the tournament. It made him the cash. And yeah, but I think this team is really good, and I think it's a really good way to learn how to play the game and to like make yourself a better player. You just have so many tools, And I think you can just really make a lot of these Pokemon shine. I think everything is just really, really disgusting here. I think the Teacup is a really cool Pokemon to add here. It really does wonders with Arcaludon. But a lot of the Rain teams we've seen prior have really been committed to like the Mausape plus Teacup, where this one is more just like, hey, we have Sinestcha. It can heal Multiscale back. It can heal Ursaluna. It can heal Arcaludon. But it's not like a huge like, oh, we're just not going to play the game. We're going to AFK and press beat up and hope that we do enough damage. It's more of an active version of the team, which I really, really like. Scarf Gholdengo is something you have to respect, and so is this Ursaluna Dragonite. So I think it just gives a lot of good options for you to do well, and I think the Teacup just synergizes with everything. Pelipper Archaludon is deadly. I think this Ursaluna Dragonite's really good. It's a really good combo. And then the Gholdengo just like kind of brings it all together. And it's just a really, really fun, good team right now. And it's definitely one that I think you should try out. So let's look at the other one. So this is the team that Marco used. It's got all the same items. Everything's correct. Outside of that, the EV spreads might be different because Marco hasn't released anything publicly. Neither has Torviv, to be fair. Both these are just credit to the original Japanese builders. So this one was actually a team that did really, really well in one of the Japanese, I believe it's an online tour. I think it's an online tour. But it did extremely well in that. It ended up winning. And Marco basically just took it and got second at a regional prior to LAIC. And then ended up winning the entire thing. And I think this team is just really, really sick. I think it's very similar-ish to the other one. I think both the teams are, like, they have some of the same concepts. Obviously, there's Tailwind plus Ursaluna. There's a weather. And then there's a Trick Room mode. It's just they kind of are function differently. I believe Marco played the team very, very Trick Room oriented, but at the same time, at any point, you just switch in Jumpluff and Charizard, and you have this just go mode that is just disgusting to deal with. Torkoal is really sick, especially with, it has really good synergy with Ursaluna, because I saw a lot of times on stream, Marco would lead stuff like P2 plus Torkoal, P2 plus Incin, and instantly just either Parting Shot out or Eject Pack out, and just get in their Ursaluna for free, have the Guts boost, and then they just lose. So I think a lot of the pieces are really, really cool. I think that if the enemy does not have a Ninetales or a Tyranitar or a Pelipper, this team just goes absolutely insane. Torkoal is just free stun for the entire game. Charizard does insane damage, obviously. Choice Specs is nuts. The Ghost Terra is really, really smart just because it allows you to obviously just dodge Fake Out. That's all you really need to do. You just need to deal damage, so dodging the thing that stops you from dealing damage is important. And then it's just this really solid like Ursaluna P2 Incin team. I think Ursaluna P2 Incin is the best core in the game. I think it's so good in Reg Age, and I think that this team just gives it a secondary mode that it's just desperately like it desires. Like the Gholdengo mode's cool. We saw it win a regional. Oh no, it didn't have Ursaluna. But we saw the Gholdengo. Gholdengo is a very popular mode with it. We saw Wolf try Arcaludon Yamega, which was also a similar type of vibe, Tailwind plus Ursaluna. A lot of good players think alike. We also saw a version that had a rain mode, where you just put Pelipper, Archaludon, and then you have a Mungus in the back. But this is just a completely different version from all those. I feel like this is a team, funnily enough, this team actually didn't perform well outside of Marco. Marco is just built different with this team. We saw that it actually did get first place, and it got last place. This team is just like, it seems to be kind of an enigma. It's very hard to practice with on Pokemon Showdown because there's a bug with the Eject Pack that in game, if you intimidate it, the sun will go up, but on Showdown the sun will not go up, so it kind of just ruins practice with the team. But I think that this team can be incredibly deadly. I think hitting Sleep Powder is really, really broken. It's really strong. And then having this Charizard just go button mode, like being able to deal with Charizard and dealing with Porygon Incin are just two completely different things that I think Marco is able to just abuse throughout the tournament. I'm very interested in this team particularly because I do wonder how many people are going to use this team going forward, because it kind of seemed like it wasn't really picking up even though Marco just got second with it. But then at the tournament, it was really just Marco carrying the torch. And so I wonder, going into the last couple events we do have of this format, if this team will pick up. I think it's really fun. I think it's a really cool team. But I don't know. It just seems very hard to pilot. You just need to make sure you're playing the Torkoal and the Charizard pieces correctly, and then just hitting the moves that you need to. I think it's a really cool team, but I just don't know like if it will be something that... I wonder if you do have to prepare for it going forward, because I do wonder how many top players are actually interested in this team, and how many people are just going to say, yeah, I'll just like dodge the Sleep Powders, or I'll just not play it, or I'll just be better than the person playing it. But again, it has all the tools. It's got that P2. It's got that Incin Ursaluna, which is just so nasty. But then it also has the amazing Jumpluff Charizard Torkoal part that just completely changes up how you're supposed to deal with it and how you're supposed to handle it. And I think to play the team, it's pretty. I mean, it is pretty complex. You have to manage weather, you have to manage guts and trick room, but you can play it really slow. You can just you have two really strong potent modes. You can just lead like Jump Left Charizard if you want to. You can lead Jump Left Torkoal, set up the Tailwind, set up Sunny Day, set up the Ursaluna that way, or you just bring in P2, press Trick Room, and just start to go crazy with it. I just think this team has so many options. So I'm very curious to see how people adjust moving forward. Now, both these teams are really interesting because they did super incredibly well, but they were both made by Japanese players, and I think that's something that I don't know if we've seen that in a while. Obviously, going into Worlds, the Arubega team that ended up winning, which was a Japanese players team, was really important and really relevant into the meta, that you needed to be prepared for it, you needed to be thinking about it, but it still won anyways. I think the Japanese players are just really exceptional. And I think using those resources is obviously incredibly valuable going forward, especially because these two teams just won, like, was it $25,000 together, and they were just made by two Japanese players. So I do think that scanning the Japanese metagame is super important going forward, and just making sure you have an eye and a pulse on the format, because obviously they're doing well. These teams are doing well, and I think both these teams were really good. And I think it just shows the power of Tailwind Ursaluna. That's the big thing here. Tailwind Ursaluna is really good, and these teams proved it. Like, they're just going nuts with Ursaluna. They're just winning games. Obviously, they both had Trick Room as well. It's just such a broken Pokemon right now, and I think it's one of the best. I think Blood Moon was supposed to be the one that was supposed to pop off, but regular Ursaluna first and second. Like, you can't argue with the results. This Pokemon is absurd. And yeah, I just wanted to touch on these two teams, give you guys resources if you want to use them, because I think they're really fun, and I think that, you know, encourages some good Pokemon to be played and learned. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little different. I just wanted to talk about these teams because they're super important in the format right now. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great and amazing day. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if you test them out, because I think these ones, these are looking nice. I would be lying if I wasn't considering these for a regional moving forward. All right, have a great day. See you guys later.